Hey folks, this is Emily. I wanted to make just a quick video. It's like a really important planting window, so I don't have a lot of time, but I am super touched by how many of you all reached out to me to make sure I didn't get tornadoed. As you can see, I'm completely fine and not tornadoed. And I think it's very interesting how many people are super scared of tornadoes. I think that it's important to understand tornadoes in their cultural context, where if you're prepared, if you're resilient against tornadoes, they're not something that occupies most people's minds in a particularly dangerous way. We tend to have extremely low loss of life when we're afflicted by tornado disasters. Thank God. Let me tell you, though, what's dangerous is when tornadoes move into new areas. And I don't have a really modern paper for this, but I have a figure I think you might like to see. So this figure that I'm going to show you, it's from an older paper. This is Cameron C. Lee's, frankly, excellent paper, even though it's a little bit older, in Journal of Natural Hazards, nice journal. The experimental modeling that we see in that paper, and remember, we're just looking at one paper here, but this is very interesting, really, how conserved the models are, is that we expect tornadoes to decrease in areas where we have a lot of established tornado culture and really move into new territory. F2 plus tornado days per decade, really looking to move up in Indiana, Ohio, Kentucky, and pretty strong signals for Tennessee. When you're talking about tornadoes in an established area, there's a strong culture of awareness of what tornado conditions look like. We tend to have sirens well in place. Businesses protect workers during tornadoes, and most people have a very scary basement where you can take shelter. And you might be the kind of person who would be inclined to run people off your property under normal conditions, but let me tell you, everybody's friends when the sky turns green. Anywhere you go, a person is going to let you in if there's tornado danger. That's the way it is in tornado country, because tornadoes are the kind of threat you really can't do that much to protect against, except to protect against the loss of life, the loss of people. Maybe you got a chance to grab a little bit of stuff if a big twister is heading your way. The loss of life is what really matters in a situation like that. Where we've seen a lot of people get killed by tornadoes, it's been tornadoes that come at night, that hit irresponsible businesses that don't protect their workers in buildings that weren't designed for tornadoes, that come at night, that hit towns where the tornado siren doesn't go off. And I'm very concerned about that as an emerging reality in states like Ohio and Indiana, where we have a pretty good resilience outlook overall, but we have an emerging threat. For areas where tornadoes are an established threat, we know how to handle it. And I know that communities where tornadoes are an increasing threat could learn from our culture here and implement protections that would help prevent loss of life. Even with serious frequent tornadoes, which Iowa has historically had, we may be seeing a decrease in that trend, which is kind of nice. The thing I wanted to talk to you about today is H5N1, because I've had a lot of folks ask me about that, and I don't really want to do a bird flu channel here. Let's stay in climate and weather related territory. But some of you know my doctorate's actually in microbiology. Check it out. I didn't even put my fancy stuff up because I got to go out there and plant more. But you can see that's under my maiden name. I studied infectious disease. I'm comfortable in a biosafety heavy environment. I feel very comfortable reading these papers. And I can tell you that bird flu has been on the radar as an actual threat for a long time. But I think that if you have some basic resilience measures in place, all you got to do is watch for some gates to see if it's getting closer to human transmission. A lot of folks who have been watching this story know that H5N1 has had just terrible impacts on seals worldwide, but it appears to be like really mild in cows, which is weird. Many of you may know that it appears that H5N1 is like all over the American dairy industry, and there are viral fragments in milk. If you're drinking pasteurized milk, if you're eating dairy products that have been fully pasteurized, that's gonna kill H5N1. But if you or other living things you love, like cats, regularly consume raw milk, you should be aware. We've got here in the Journal of Emerging Infectious Disease, straight from the CDC, we're seeing it in cats. We're seeing it in cats that have been drinking raw milk, and they're dying. They're dying with some scary symptoms. I'm going to drop this recent update, April 26th update from the CDC, into the video description here. If you want to check out what the CDC is saying about how this virus is changing, we don't have any indication that it's gaining the respiratory mutations that it would need to get into the lungs right now, to get into the human airway. So that is news that is important for knowing that we are not at the freak out stage yet. I don't want to talk about H5N1 much on the channel, but I know this is something where people are really scared and where the signal to noise ratio on the internet is really high. Speaking as somebody who has had a lot of infectious disease education and exposure to that world, there's two things that I want you to look for. And passing these two gates is the only other time you're going to hear me talk about H5N1 on this channel, because there's too much of it out there, right? Like, I know that you don't want to be overwhelmed by like everything everywhere you go. The first gate to look for is pig-to-pig transmission, because if we see it in pigs and it's spreading between pigs, they have very similar immune system to us and similar receptors in the respiratory system. The second gate to look for is human-to-human transmission. And I have a simple rhyme for how you should prepare for hitting those gates. If you see pig-to-pig, it's time to stock up big. You want to have a good supply, like a 3-month supply of stuff in your house. I'm going to link my reasonable prep video in the video description here, because I think that entirely too many of us who keep an eye on the news like this also have hoarding tendencies. No shame, but like, you have to be able to guard against that. You have to be able to decide what's a reasonable level of preparation and where do you go into preparation that might be unreasonable or actually more destructive to yourself or your family life than the benefit you expect to get. Pig to pig, stock up big. H to H, stay in place. If this thing goes human to human, you want to be in your house, not going out for anything. It could burn really hot. We could be talking about a 50% mortality event. That's something that we've known about for a long time in the infectious disease community. This is something that governments have wargamed for. That's such a lousy response to COVID, is that all of our infectious disease plans were for something that was going to kill you like a lot instead of kill you a little and like increasingly disable you over a long time. Nobody was prepared for that kind of a threat. Highly pathogen avian influenza, there are a lot of plans in place for this threat, beginning in the Bush administration, carrying into the Obama administration. The books are ready to go. And the more that you can do to build up a reasonable level of resilience in your home, the more likely it's going to be that, and hopefully it doesn't come to pass. Hopefully we get this cow version where it just slows you down for a while and then you're fine. If it does come to pass, we get a big H2H transmission, you want to be the person who waves at the National Guard and doesn't have to open the door for them. I feel like it's good if we can take care of ourselves and take pressure off a system that would be very strained in the event of H2H avian flu transmission. But we're not there yet. And maybe we're not going to be. It's crossed. This is the last time I talk to you about this particular scary thing. If you're concerned about it, I want you to watch the reasonable prep video. You'll be ready. You'll be safe as you can be in such a serious pandemic and able, hopefully, to move on with your life and feel like your anxiety should be eased. Watch for those two gates. That's all, folks. Let's get ready. I'll talk to you soon. I promise. Only climate news next. Folks, thanks so much for your support of American Resiliency. It's thanks to viewers like you who have contributed your energy, your money, your time, that we are where we are today, which is off the runway and looking towards year 4 and 5. We're in the middle of a visioning process as we figure out what we want to do with the power that we've accumulated here with AR to figure out what climate information folks need, how to get it to them. If you want to be part of the visioning process, please get in touch. This is inclusive. We're seeking input from everyone in the community. And thanks again. Your involvement keeps this nonprofit going. If you want to give, you can find a donate tab at the top of our webpage or on the about page of our YouTube channel. Thanks so much and talk to you again soon.